Hello, and welcome back to Kia's Two Cents, where I, Kia, give you my 2 cents on all things TV, film, books, and pretty much whatever I want. Today, I'm starting a new series where I take shows that were canceled after one season and I answer 4 questions. And those are: what were my thoughts on the show? Why do I think it only got one season? Do I think it should have gotten more seasons? And if so, what do I think should have happened in those subsequent seasons? And today I'm kicking it off with a show that I feel like it was a cult classic from the 2000s. I feel like so many people were upset that it didn't get more seasons, and so many people recommend this as a great show to watch. And so that show is Freaks and Geeks. Freaks and Geeks follows two siblings, Sam and Lindsay, throughout their high school experience. Sam is a freshman and he is the geek, and so his friends are the geeks of the show. And Lindsay is his older sister, and what we learn throughout the show is that she was a geek the previous year, and now she starts hanging out with the group of freaks. So thus are Freaks and Geeks. And now to answer the first question, what were my thoughts and what did I think about this series? I feel very qualified to give my opinion on this because I love teen dramas, comedies, sitcoms, everything in that genre. I've watched a ton of them. I continue to watch and rewatch them. And so I do feel qualified. And I'll just say this, it wasn't the best one that I've ever seen. That's just my opinion, but I honestly do understand why it became such a cult classic, because it veered from a lot of teen dramas and broke a lot of rules that television shows that are based in high school and teenagers do, and it highlighted very specific groups that are usually the butts of the jokes, are usually the ones who are made fun of and ignored and all of that. So I understand why so many people loved it. It did have a slow start, but I won't hold that against it. This is the first season of a new show, and I'm pretty sure most shows have a slow start. It's very rare that one will just be amazing in the very first episode and explode. So I'm not going to count that against them, but for me it did take a minute to really get into it. And I think part of that is because I was under the impression that this was going to lean more into comedy, and then when I started watching it, I saw that the episodes were like the hour length. I mean, it was really like 45 minutes, but this was an hour-long show when it aired. So that was a little confusing because it actually did really lean into the comedy side of it, and I saw it more as a comedy than a drama, but it was the length of most dramas, and so that really confused me. But overall, I would say it's not a terrible show. It's not the best teen drama that I've seen, but I do think it is worth watching. And now question number 2, why do I think it only got one season? I'm going to say this in like a couple categories, and I'm going to start with the formatting. So like I said before, this was an hour-long show, and for me, that just felt like it was too long. I really do think that it would have been better if the episodes were half an hour. And again, like I said previously, it felt more that it leaned into its comedic side than its dramatic side, even though it did tackle both. And so that's why I feel like it would have done better as a half an hour. And I have watched shows that balance the comedy and the drama, and I'm just going to use Degrassi as an example. The episode lengths of that show were a half an hour, and they did a pretty good job. When they had longer storylines that they wanted to do, they sometimes had 2-parter episodes. So I think that this show could have taken a page out of that book and been a half an hour long, balancing the comedy and the drama, being able to flow back and forth. And then if they needed the extra time, they just do a part 1 and a part 2. The second reason why I think it only lasted one season is because of the time period that it premiered in. This show came out in 1999, and it is about a show that doesn't take place in 1999. It actually takes place in the early 80s. And interestingly enough, in my research, because the show did remind me of that 70s show in a way. I saw that it was the year before that 70s show premiered, so to have this premiere after it could have felt like it was trying to capitalize off of that 70s show, because it is a show about a past decade, and I'm not at all trying to say that that is a bad thing. Trying to capitalize off of a show that was popular by essentially doing the same thing but a little different because it's a different decade. Freaks and Geeks was not called that 80s show, so I think that people could have been a little confused when it premiered, because when I watched it, I was asking myself, what decade is this? When did this show premiere? And so I had to do that research, and that's when I discovered that and was like, okay, this is very interesting that this show is coming out at the end of the millennia 99, and it's actually not about teenagers that are currently existing in the late 90s into the 2000s. It's about the 80s, and I don't think that it's a bad thing. We've had shows that center teenagers, sitcoms and all that take place in the 80s, and I love those shows. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think that, well, I can't speak on how it was marketed because I was not watching it. I was born, I was 8 years old when it came out, but I don't remember any commercials for it, and I don't know how it was marketed. So I feel like if people were going into it, they could have been a little confused because they're like, what decade is this? Because it doesn't look like today. And then the last category that I want to mention is the network and just the airing of the episodes, because I did even more research about this show and realized or learned that it hopped from one network to another network. It started out on NBC and then it moved to Fox Family, and if you don't know what Fox Family is, it's what Freeform is today. So I'm assuming it went from Fox Family, and then a lot of us know of ABC Family, and then how it turned into Freeform. Well, back then it was called Fox Family. So it switched networks, which can hurt viewership because you're obviously used to seeing it come on NBC at a certain time on a certain day, and then all of a sudden, especially in the middle or within the season and not like outside in between seasons, it switches to another network. And so people are turning on NBC thinking that they're going to be watching Freaks and Geeks, and it's not there. And some people could have just given up and said, oh well, I guess that's the end of that, and didn't realize that it moved. And because of the time period and like social media and stuff is different from now, I 100% think that people just didn't know, and that they turned on their TV and the show was gone, and they didn't hear about it moving, and they didn't know where it was moving to. Maybe they didn't even have that network on their television. Maybe they couldn't even get it. So, and also there were episodes that didn't even air. So the treatment that this show got from the networks that it was on was kind of extremely unfortunate, to have it switch networks and then have these episodes that are filmed and ready to go and they don't even air. So people aren't even seeing the full season because they're lacking episodes. And again, the time period of which it premiered, there were really no streaming services, no going online and watching the show the next day. So even if the season ends, it's not like it's getting put anywhere like a Netflix or a Hulu for people to go back and watch the entire season and see the episodes that they missed, and all of that like momentum that shows can get from that. It didn't exist then. So I think all of those things that I listed were reasons why it didn't get another season, and a lot of those reasons are really just unfortunate and the fault of the network and the switching networks, and really doesn't have anything to do with the content of the show. And now onto the question, do I think it should have gotten more seasons? And honestly, this is a very complicated question to answer with this show and all of the history that went into it that I just mentioned. I can see why it didn't get another season, and I'm not surprised that it didn't get another season with all of the things that are happening. or that happened with the show, if I remove all of that with the like network drama and the unaired episodes, if I remove all of that and just look at the content of the show and what we were given and what I watched, I think that it could have thrived with more seasons. Usually people look at what happens during the first season and they try and gauge what the viewers are saying and what they think about it, and then move forward that way. They look at the things that they did right, they look at the things that they did wrong, and they switch things around, they change things, they keep things, and then they keep moving forward. And because of the amount of television that I have watched and seeing like the differences between the first season and all of the subsequent seasons, I think that it could have gotten more seasons. I mean, how many teen dramas do we have that how many have we seen in the from the past? How many do we have on air and on streaming services right now, especially ones that take place and center around the high school experience? It could have done well. I think people would come to understand that this is the 80s. I can't remember if there was text on screen that said the year. If there wasn't, I think that would have been very helpful. Obviously there are context clues, but being very obvious about something like that is just really easy. Again, just put the text on the screen. And like I said earlier, it highlighted a group of students that usually don't get highlighted, and they were given a voice and they were given space to be seen and heard, and not just looked at as this stereotype like you're a pothead, you're burnout, you don't want to be in school, you're a geek and all you care about is like being teacher's pet and learning and getting like the highest grades on everything. It shines a light on like what actually goes on in those groups in high school. So I think that they would have captivated people in those groups and people outside of those groups, and it could have been a great show. So yeah, I do think that outside of all of the network stuff, it should have gotten more seasons. I'm an advocate for like teen, preteen media and all of that, so the more the merrier. But yeah, that's just what I think. It would have been interesting to see if they would have like figured out a way to change it from like an hour long to a half hour long. I guess they just make it a half hour and maybe put 2 episodes on in a night, and so it can still take up the hour slot. I don't know. People were trying a whole bunch of stuff back then, and it was more likely to catch on then than it does now, because people want things now to be so instantaneously good. Back then things were given a chance to breathe and grow, so I think that they could have successfully made that change if that's something that they wanted to do. So yeah, at the end of the day, I do think that Freaks and Geeks should have gotten more seasons. And on to our final question, what do I think should have happened in those extra seasons if they got them? Well, this is very simple. It's a teen drama that centers around kids in high school. You have a freshman as one of your main characters, and so it goes all the way through to graduation and them surviving, and it's also coming of age, so they leave as they graduate with a sense of who they are and like a piece of what their identity is. Obviously it doesn't have to be the whole, because this is high school and you're about to go off to college or do whatever you want to do post high school, so you're going to learn more about yourself in those years. But very simply, take us to Sam's graduation and see how they all survived high school as freaks and geeks, and maybe roles reverse, like we start the series seeing Lindsay trying to be a freak after being a geek, and then we see her struggle between the two worlds throughout the first season. So does she find a way to do both? Does she cling on to one and stay there? Does she go back to being a geek? Does she continue being a freak? Does Sam switch groups at all? Does he try and do anything different, or they're friends and we just see them navigate that and those relationships, and you know, all of the fun stuff that happens with high school, like dating and sports and academics and dealing with your parents and all of those things. We just see all of that, and then in the end we get to see them graduate, and hopefully it is pleasant and congratulatory and not just like yikes, not like a struggle survived, but like a happy we survived it, we graduated, and now we're moving on. So that's everything I have to say on the show Freaks and Geeks. Do me a favor and take those 4 questions that I answered with my opinions and you answer them with your opinions in the comments below. Tell me all of your thoughts. Were you watching it when it actually aired on television? Give some insight to those of us who didn't. Give some insight onto some of them, y'all who are probably watching, who weren't even born yet when it was airing. How old were you when it was on the air? I said I was 8. So how old were you? Were you in high school when this was airing? Tell me all of your thoughts that you can remember when you were watching this. And also, if you didn't watch it when it aired, let me know how you discovered it and what year or decade it was when you got a chance to watch it. If this is something that you are enjoying, you can go on to my page and take a look at some more of my content that I do. And if you like that, please subscribe and share and get ready because more of these videos are coming in this series. Also, suggest me more shows that were canceled after 1 season, and I will answer those same 4 questions for those like I did for this. All right, until next time, bye.